Once you sing, it would be better.
Can you sit here or you want to use sofa?
Anyway, whichever is convenient.
It's more comfortable for you.
I can sit anywhere.
Can I get a mat for the danda?
Sing kirtan or you? We had an hour of kirtan already.
An hour of kirtan. Okay.
Stuck half an hour in traffic.
Yeah, that's okay now. Oops.
Just reduce the echo.
Feels like I'm in outer space.
Oh,
What's the time frame?
1 o'clock. Yeah, 1 hour. It's 12 now. 1 o'clock we have class.
Okay.
1 o'clock is
It's
prasad.
12 o'clock sharp. Then we'll start class.
Nice.
Do we have any better seats for you? Right. That's fine. He'll sort it out, I'm sure. Alright. We'll start the prayers. Shri Chaitanya Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayanampa Kadamayam Dadati Savarantikam Vachikalpatarubhischa Kripasindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Sri Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. This is piece of art.
Yes.
Who made it?
Elaborately. I don't know.
Is this deity or prasad or?
I think it is combined garland.
Oh really? Wow. Very impressive. Okay, so where are we in the nectar of devotion?
First chapter, number 3. We've done.
What is the third symptom of bhakti? Okay, that's good. Do we do the Dhamma Shastra Gita, which are my opinion to know?
We will sing the
Sagar.
Sadgoswami. We sing Sadgoswami Ashtakam before reading it.
Oh, they already did it.
Yeah.
Okay, alright, good. So then, we haven't read yet the third symptom. Or did we?
No, we have.
Okay. Okay. So. First chapter. Characteristics of pure devotional service. Third characteristic is what? Happiness, right? Happiness in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami has analyzed the different sources of happiness. He has divided happiness into 3 categories, which are 1, happiness derived from material enjoyment, 2, happiness derived by identifying oneself with the Supreme Brahman, and 3, happiness derived Bhakti Shastri, Lord Shiva speaks to his wife Sati in this way: My dear wife, a person who has surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Govinda and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness can be very easily awarded all the perfections desired by the impersonalists, and beyond this, he can enjoy the happiness achieved by the pure devotees. Happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest because it is eternal. The happiness derived from material perfection or understanding oneself to be Brahman is inferior because it is temporary. There is no preventing one's falling down from material happiness, and there is even every chance of falling down from the spiritual happiness derived out of identifying oneself with a personal Brahman. It has been seen that great Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis, very highly educated and almost realized souls, may sometimes take to political activities or to social welfare activities. The reason is that they actually do not derive any ultimate transcendental happiness in the impersonal understanding, and therefore must come down to the material platform and take to such mundane affairs. There are many instances, especially in India, where these Mayavadi sannyasis descend to the material platform again, but the person who is fully in Krishna consciousness will never return to any sort of material platform, however alluring and attracting they may be. He always knows that no material welfare activity can compare to the spiritual activity of Krishna consciousness. So I really wanted to say something in this regard because personally for many years I felt quite confused with that statement, which actually appears in many places in Prabhupada's books, comparing devotees and Mayavadis, that Mayavadis, they descend to the welfare activities, and for them this is degradation, but devotees, it never happens with the devotees, right? And the kind of, I think, widespread understanding is that Mayavadis deal with, material world and do some kind of social activities, but devotees never do any of this, right? And I was talking with Krishna Kshetra Maharaj, and I think he mentioned himself, and I was really surprised by that. He said devotees never fall down to the material platform like Mayavadis because they are always socially active, or they're always meant to be socially active, and they are doing it for Krishna, for Mayavadis. So it's the opposite, right? From what I was thinking, I'm pretty sure that many other devotees are think in the same way. So for Mayavadis, because they try to kind of establish themselves in Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya understanding, right? You know what it means, right? Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya.
Yeah.
That only spiritual things are true, but everything material is false, illusory, right? That's why they're called Mayavadis, because they're always worried about Maya, right? And they are above Maya, right? Because they think they are gods. We're above Maya, and so they never bother with anything material, right? That's their understanding. But devotees, they never have this idea. They understand that everything belongs to Krishna, and everything has to be engaged in Krishna's service. And that's why devotees never fall down to the social platform, because they're already engaged on social level. They're always engaged with the society. They never leave the society. And so, and devotees cannot fall because all their activities are dedicated to Krishna and connected to Krishna, right? So there is no fall down for devotees. I don't know if it makes any sense. Maybe Vijay Gopikir Prabhu can say something in this regard. Maybe
No, there's one more.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you for bringing up this point. Because the word devotee itself, where Prabhupada defined it, he was talking of personalities like Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya, of that caliber. One time I was hearing the Satsvarup Maharaj wrote a poem and sent it to Prabhupada. This devotee is calling out sadly, is falling down very badly, trapped in a city of 9 gates, something like that, in a pitiable condition like that. So Prabhupada told Brahmananda Prabhu that this first word in this poem is wrong. He said, when you talk about devotees falling badly, you're talking about devotees like Srimati Radharani. So he said, write back to Satsvarup Maharaj and say, you should change it to servants. Your servant is falling down very badly, calling out sadly, and so on, so on, so on. Trapped in the city of 9 gates. So he said that devotees cannot fall down like that. So when we're talking about devotees, we are not on that platform. This is another one level of definition. So when we say things like devotees don't fall down, and yet we have so many fall downs in our society, probably more than outside the society, then we kind of wonder, okay, what bracket do we fall in? Are we devotees, are we not? And it applies to devotees, yes, that's a fact. But whether we fall in that category of devotee is the question, or to what extent we fall in that category. This has always been very difficult for me to understand. Where do we actually fall? Are we devotees or are we not? So maybe Maharaj, you can clarify that a bit.
Yeah, that what constitutes fall is another thing, because for Mayavadis, and that was also a confusion for me, that Mayavadis fall into the activities of goodness, but we see that devotees, if they live Krishna conscious practices, they can fall much lower than the activity of goodness sometimes. And so that was the confusion. But the kind of a fall Prabhupada talks in here is completely different. That fall, means betraying one's own principles. That Mayavadi's principle is that I'm infallible God, and then they fall down like that. They get involved with material activities, right? So, but devotee never thinks himself, I'm God. And so, yes, that what we call fall down is just kind of temporary bewilderment by Maya. So it's basically, yes, devotee leaves activities which externally help him to elevate in Krishna consciousness, and then he gets involved in something for his own sense gratification. But there is no fall down, because devotee never thinks himself to be God, to be, on that level.
So you're speaking of a philosophical fall down.
Yeah. And
As opposed to sensual fall down.
yeah, so sensual fall down, because it's also part of one's devotional development, as we see in scriptures, right? That like Bharat Maharaj fell because of his attachment to deer, but then we can see that this fall down, so-called fall down, actually helped him to become Jad Bharat, very great devotee, etc. So whatever's happening with the devotee, and that's also explained in Bhagavatam, is all under Krishna's control. and under Krishna's protection. And actually, these fall downs are happening, like Prabhupada would say that pride comes before the fall, right? That to help the devotee to develop humility and help him to become better devotee. So that's why if someone becomes a devotee, then, externally one may or may not be serving Krishna, but one can never lead Krishna. Like there was one, anyway, one senior devotee in Russia was doing a program, public program, and then one lady came up to him after the program and she said, I've been away from devotee association for 20 years and I was not practicing anything, and I was trying very, very hard to kind of get into sense gratification and, come back to the material life. And basically, for that you have to forget Krishna, right? And she said, I know that, for practicing devotees, the hardest thing in life is to always remember Krishna and never forget him, right? We do so many things. We chant, we read, we have darshan, and associate with the devotees with one idea only, to focus our attention on Krishna, but then mind is always deviating, right? And it's hard, always catch your mind and bring you back to the subject of Krishna. And she said, this is the struggle for practicing devotees, but for me, the struggle was, I was trying to forget Krishna, and I was always remembering Krishna. And at the end I realized, no, there is no escape from Krishna. I have to come back and continue with my practices. So, which shows that spiritually devotee never falls. Krishna is always there, no matter what happens. So, it's very interesting. And yes, that's also what Vijayagopika Prabhu said, that devotees are glorified in so many ways, and we might think, oh, this is applicable to us, but then Prabhupada says, devotee is the one who always remembers Krishna and never forgets him. And whose every action, word, and thought are directed at pleasing Krishna, for example. And we might think, okay, am I on this level or not? So maybe I'm not the kind of devotee which is glorified in Prabhupada's books. It's also there. So, but are there any questions or any other thoughts in regard to this topic? That it was very kind of powerful realization for me what Krishna Kshetra Maharaj shared. Yes.
Just to one point I heard the other day.
Just to second.
At the temple, and from other devotees to try not chanting for a few days and see, can you stop it, or can you just hold it oh, I'm not going to chant today. And you see that, can you forget Krishna? It's difficult than chanting.
Okay. Interesting. Right. Yes. Jitendra.
Just on the topic of fall downs, you were saying that even when a devotee supposedly falls down, even that can be a part of the devotee's spiritual development, in that it's like Bharat Maharaj, it still happens under Krishna's
Control.
supervision, yes. So when a devotee, for example, loses faith for whatever reason, and they leave Krishna for some time, is their losing faith also a part of their spiritual development, in the sense that it's happening under Krishna's guidance, so that when they lose faith in Krishna for some reason, it's also a reason for them to develop faith in Krishna, to improve their faith.
Yes, because normally we at some point will lose faith in Krishna being our servant. Because this is the initial faith. We start our spiritual life with that. Okay, I was always looking for good servant. Someone who does everything for me, and now here it is, like Ekabhavanamya Vidatapikaban, one who fulfills all the desires. So, I'll be there just, desiring, and Krishna will be fulfilling those desires. So, I'll be ordering, and Krishna will be my order supplier, right? But yes, that faith gets shattered after a while. And then, the real faith should be developing in the place that instead of Krishna being my servant, I actually should be Krishna's servant. So yeah, there is sentimental, materialistic faith, which gets destroyed, which is based on Kaitava Dharma, but then the real faith should be developing. All right. So we carry on. Getting into the most interesting part, mystic perfections. The mystic perfections achieved by actually successful yogis are 8 in number. Animasiddhi refers to the power by which one can become so small then that he can enter into a stone. So I hope you're following that. This previous paragraph was in regards to material happiness, right? And so this is in regards to spiritual happiness tinged by material motivations, right? And so the first one is yogic happiness. Animasiddhi refers to the power by which one can become so small that he can enter into a stone. Modern scientific improvements also enable us to enter into stone because they provide for excavating so many subways, penetrating the hills, etc. So when you drive through the tunnel, you already achieved the mystic perfection of Animasiddhi, right? And it's only costing $3 or $4.
It's going up now.
Going up, yeah. So mystic cities are not cheap in 21st century.
Inflation.
Yeah. So Animasiddhi, the mystic perfection of trying to enter into stone, has also been achieved by material science. Similarly, all of the yoga siddhis or perfections are material arts. For example, in one yoga siddhi, there is development of the power to become so light that one can float in the air or on water. That's also being performed by modern scientists. They are flying in the air, floating on the surface of the water, and they are traveling under the water. After comparing all the mystic yoga siddhis to materialistic perfections, we find that the materialistic scientists try for the same perfections. So actually there is no difference between mystic perfection and materialistic perfection. A German scholar once said that the so-called yoga perfections have already been achieved by the modern scientists, and so he was not concerned with them. He intelligently went to India to learn how he could understand his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord by means of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. What was the name of that devotee? Bhakti Saraswati's disciple? Sadananda, or I think his name was Sadananda Brahma. Yeah, that Prabhupada talks about one of his godbrothers. Bhakti Saraswati actually had few Western disciples also, even though he was not focusing on Western preaching like Prabhupada did. Of course, in the categories of mystic perfection, there are certain processes which the materialistic scientists have not yet been able to develop. For instance, a mystic yogi can enter into the sun planet simply by using the rays of the sunshine. This perfection is called lakima. Similarly, a yogi can touch the moon with his finger. Though the modern astronauts go to the moon with the help of spaceships, they undergo many difficulties, whereas a person with mystic perfection can extend his hand and touch the moon with his finger. This siddhi is called prapti or acquisition. But this prapti siddhi, not only can the perfect mystic yogi touch the moon planet, but he can extend his hand anywhere and take whatever he likes. Many people are dreaming about this, right? He may be sitting thousands of miles away from a certain place, and if he likes, he can take fruit from a garden there. This is prapti siddhi. Probably the bank, what you call it, storages would get empty pretty soon if we have too many people with these cities, right? The modern scientists have manufactured nuclear weapons with which they can destroy an insignificant part of this planet by the yoga siddhi known as Ishita. One can create and destroy an entire planet simply at will. Another perfection is called Vashita, and by this perfection one can bring anyone under his control. This is a kind of hypnotism which is almost irresistible. Sometimes it's found that a yogi who may have attained a little perfection in this Vashita, mystic power, comes out among the people and speaks all sorts of nonsense, controls their minds, exploits them, takes their money, and then goes away. It's like really powerful siddhi, but then, result is very cheap. Bewilder few villagers and take away few rupees. Ends up in a very cheap way. There is another mystic perfection which is known as prakamya magic. By this prakamya power one can achieve anything he likes. For example, one can make water enter into his eye and then again come out from within the eye. Simply by his will he can perform such wonderful activities. The highest perfection of mystic power is called Kamma Vaishita. Kamma Vasaita. This is also magic. It's even hard to pronounce what to speak of mastering, right? This is also magic, but whereas the prakamya power acts to create wonderful effects within the scope of nature, Kama Vasaita permits one to contradict nature. In other words, to do the impossible. Of course, one can derive great amounts of temporary happiness by achieving such yogic, materialistic perfections. Foolishly, people who are enamored of the glitter of modern materialistic advancement are thinking that the Krishna consciousness movement is for less intelligent men. I'm better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, and sex life. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of their material situation. Due to ignorance, they do not know that real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of life, and it is due only to darkest ignorance that people become enamored of the glittering advancement of material comforts. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore said that advancement of material knowledge renders a person more foolish because it causes one to forget his real identity by its glitter. This is doom for him because this human form of life is meant for getting out of material contamination. By the advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope of being liberated from this catastrophe. So, that's pretty much about yogic perfections. If There are any comments? Maybe Vijay Gopikir Prabhu can say something. He achieved many yogic siddhis. flying every other day on the magic Qantas carpet.
Across the Tasman Sea. Sorry, 2,000 kilometers. Yeah. Prabhupada said that a pure devotee has all the mystic powers, mystic siddhis available. Can you please comment on that? When and how?
Yeah. That devotee has access to all mystic powers does not mean that devotee himself has those mystic powers. That is illustrated in Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni episode, because Durvasa Muni was the most powerful mystic yogi in universe, right? That's why he had the capacity of actually, running around the entire universe, right? Looking for shelter, trying to protect himself from Sudarshan Chakra, and running out of the universe into the spiritual world, into Vaikuntha. And as it is described in the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, that this universe has 8 layers, starting with, of course, earth layer, right? And then water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. And each of the next layers is 10 times thicker than the previous one. So you can just imagine, penetrating through all these layers and getting out of the universe by foot. So how much, mystic powers one should have. And creating, the demon from the hair of his, beard, hair. Yeah. So he had mind-blowing mystic powers. And Ambarish Maharaj was not known for having these kind of mystic powers at all. But nevertheless, it's described that because of the great devotion Ambarish Maharaj had, Lord Vishnu personally gifted him Sudarshan Chakra, and that Sudarshan Chakra was guarding Maharaj Ambarishi. And when that happened, Sudarshan Chakra went and destroyed that, chopped this demon into pieces, and then went after Durvasa Muni, and Durvasa Muni couldn't escape, and until he apologized in front of Ambarish Maharaj, his life was under threat. So this is what I see as the prime example of devotee having mystic powers, because he has Krishna. And because Krishna not only has mystic powers, he's the soul, he's Yogeshwar. And therefore, devotee does not require any mystic powers, because Krishna has them, and if devotee needs those, for any reason, Krishna can always provide him with those mystic powers. It's like Prabhupada, sometimes exhibited different powers, like ability to see into the future and read people's minds. There are many episodes like that. And then sometimes disciples would get scared of Prabhupada's, like just being in the presence of someone who can read your mind absolutely clearly, that you cannot hide any thought from the person. And it's pretty scary, right? It's like worse than being naked, right? And so, then the disciples started freaking out, like, Prabhupada, is it true that you know everything? And Prabhupada laughed and he said, no, I'm not Krishna, don't worry. I don't know everything, but Krishna knows everything. And if need is there, Krishna tells me. So this is my understanding, but yeah. Devotees do exhibit mystic powers, but these are not their mystic powers, these are Krishna's mystic powers.
I think in that London temple installation of deity, the altar is going to collapse.
Yes.
Famous past that.
Yeah. Yeah, many things. And many episodes have exhibited superpowers, superhuman powers. Right. Anything else? Okay. No one here has any interest for mystic powers. So we can move on. You already attained all mystic powers because you are living in very special country, Australia. Astral country, right? The country where everything is topsy-turvy. Even the seasons are topsy-turvy in here.
One time, Mahatma Prabhu was saying that through practicing bhakti, we can see our see our spiritual identity also. I mean, it's not related to mystic power. I don't know what is that kind of.
Yeah.
We can identify ourselves like who we are in the spiritual world.
Yeah. This is called Svarup Siddhi in Sanskrit. That understanding our identity in the spiritual world, and it's kind of very, you can say, mesmerizing goal to understand who am I in Krishna Leela, right? What kind of servant of Krishna I am. And actually some of the devotees in Prabhupada times were asking Prabhupada, because it's explained that spiritual master can reveal you your identity in the spiritual world. And then one devotee was like pressing Prabhupada, can you please reveal my identity in the spiritual world? What's my Svarup? What's my eternal position? And Prabhupada would say, your Svarup is rascal. This is your eternal position. Anyway, I think in one instance he told, like very insisting disciple that you're peacock in the spiritual world, something like that. Anyway, that, and of course these Radhakund Babajis, they kind of say that, oh, in ISKCON you will not get that, but come to us, we'll tell you your Svarup, right? And of course it's really cheap, because one devotee went to Radhakund, he stayed there, he was hoping to get that Svarup, but the kind of disgusting thing he saw amongst those practitioners, completely convinced him that he's not in the right place. So he came back to his ISKCON again. But it's really important to learn this process of Svarup Siddhi. It's really important to desire that and strive for that, but in the right way. And right way means according to the way which has been revealed to us by our tradition, by our acharyas. And anyone has internet access and can look up the Siddhi Lalasa song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Siddhi Lalasa means striving for Siddhi, for perfection, and actually this song is explaining the entire process of how can we realize our eternal form in the spiritual world, Svarupa Siddhi, which is very interesting. Did you get it? Siddhi Lalasa by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. At kksongs.org, that's the good website. You got it.
The 3 songs under that.
It starts Kabe Navadvipe, Sura Lunitate,
Yeah.
Harateha Krishna Bole. Okay. So we have microphone next to you. Can someone give him microphone and can you please read the translation of the song? And please listen carefully.
Translation 1. When will I wander here and there, weeping under the shade of the shade of the trees and creepers, along the banks of the celestial Ganges river in Navadvipa. I will cry out, O Radhe, O Krishna, and I will completely forget about all the so-called pleasures of the material body, of this material body. Number 2, when will I be able to live so simply by begging some food from the homes of the untouchables who live here and there? I will drink the water of the Saraswati, and in ecstasy I will roll to and fro on the banks of river, raising a loud uproar of Krishna, Krishna. Number 3, when will I bow down to all the inhabitants of the holy land of Navadvipa and receive a bit of their causeless mercy? I will smear the dust of the Vaishnavas' lotus feet all over my body, and I will wear the dress of a mad wandering mendicant. Number 4, when I factually observe that the transcendental lane of Navadvipa is not different from Sri Vrajabhumi, then I shall be transformed into a Vrajabasi also. Then I will see the true form of transcendental realm opening up before my very eyes, and I will thus become one of the maidservant of Srimati Radharani.
Yeah. So the whole process is described there. So maybe Vijay Gopikar Prabhu can comment a few words on this process.
No idea, Maharaj.
Well, according to this song.
Yeah, the highest mysticism level revealed here is to be a servant of Srimati Radharani. So that's like the last sloka of nectar instruction, right? But it starts with Vacho Vegam. The starting of the journey is Vacho